update information on P4C for our local teachers as well as foreign teachers who attended the symposium. Now, we have a list of speakers from overseas. And why are we inviting overseas speakers for this symposium? Why not only our local teachers? Right? Because we also want our local teachers to know what are the latest updates for P4C, not only in Singapore, but in overseas. Right? And we also want our teachers to know how sustainable, how applicable P4C is in our own schools, no matter what subjects and what language, right? And this list of overseas trainers, you will be able to meet them if you come to Singapore to participate in our level 1 and level 2 courses in P4C. We also have a list of speakers on the second day of the P4C symposium. These are teachers that has been practicing P4C in their schools, right? Our acting minister for education is the one that has did the opening ceremony for the symposium, and there are a list of teachers from different schools who participate to share with the teachers and participants what is going on in school using P4C and what kind of obstacles they have encountered when they apply P4C in schools. So that was a very good opportunity for P4C practitioners and those who wanted to use P4C in their schools, yeah, to participate, especially to listen to all these practitioners. How do they do it, and what are the things that they find which is difficult to apply? And just to show you all some photos, this is our acting minister for education, and some of your directors and teachers, they were able to interact with him during the opening ceremony. And this is Professor Tago. He is the lecturer in our National University of Singapore in the philosophy department. And Tago family is a very famous family in Singapore and in India as well. Yeah, and his grandfather, one of them, is a very famous poet and philosopher. Right? He himself is a philosopher, and in Singapore until now, many roads in Singapore is named after their family. For example, Tago Avenue, Tago Lane. So all these road names are named after their family because they are a very famous family in Singapore. Right, and this is Professor Philip Cam. He's the one that will be conducting the level 1 course of P4C in Singapore for module 1 to 4. Right, he is a P4C, he's a P4C expert, and he comes to Singapore to help us to conduct the lessons very often. And this is Dr. Teo Chin Leong from MGS. He is also a philosopher who believes in P4C in schools. And his whole school is using P4C not only in the philosophy subject, but in also many subjects in the schools. And this is Mr. Emmanuel Scotus from Australia. He's a VP from Dandenong High School. And he himself is one of the trainers for P4C, not only in Australia, but he also come to conduct level 2 P4C course in Singapore as well. And this is Dr. Jeanette Polton. She is a philosopher, and she was 2-term president of the Australia Philosophy Association. Yeah, so she is helping to conduct the level 2 course in Singapore as well. And this is one of our guest speakers. Sorry, it's not Jeanette Polton, it's Dr. Rosnani from the Malaysia Islamic Institute. Right, she spoke about how she used P4C in her religious study. Right? So that was very interesting. And this is Dr. Ho Wakam. He is our former dean of NIE. NIE is our only institute for teachers training in Singapore. So he was the one that has been pushing for P4C from many decades ago until now. So we see the P4C is bearing fruits in Singapore right now because of him. So I would like to actually highlight him a little bit here. So these are the pictures taken during the symposium. Maybe you can identify some of your leaders and teachers here. This is day 2. Right, so why I want to show you all these people? They are from different backgrounds. Some of them, they are administrators. Some of them, they are educators. Some of them, they are P4C practitioners. Some of them, they are teachers, they are principals. And they are all believing in P4C. Why? Because they believe P4C is sustainable. It could be adapted to your school environment, not only in philosophy subject, but also in many other subjects, right? So this is what the idea I want to let you know. So right now, I would like to pass the mic back to Madam Jessie Ang to talk about the P4C values and about how she thinks that P4C can help to increase the volume of vocabulary. Jessie, please.
Okay, when Thomas shared about the P4C symposium, I think some of you are there. Some of you might have been there. You can see that there's many ways to actually integrate P4C. Of course, the one that actually interests us the most was the one by Dr. Rosnani, which Thomas have actually shared, that he actually uses P4C as a way of discussion about Islamic studies. So we thought that that was actually very interesting because given that the situation around the world related to Islam itself, using the P4C actually brings about more understanding of this particular teaching, whether it's in an ancient text or it's a modern text that we're talking about. Of course, she also shared about the challenges about using this particular format in bringing about the understanding of the studies. Now for myself, I'm doing it in Chinese. I'm a Chinese language educator. I'm doing administration now as well. How I started off this thing is, I started the P4C accreditation in Singapore. We have to go through 5 modules, which is 5 days. And then that's where I come to have a deeper understanding of this whole, how do we actually carry out P4C in the classroom? And how do we put P4C into a level program or into a subject itself? So I will start off why? You know, there are so many ways of teaching Chinese language in the class, but why P4C? I mean, as a teacher, we all know, as an educator, we do not just use one pedagogy. We use multiple pedagogy because we know that there are many different learners out there. But particularly we wanted to do was that we wanted to stretch our high ability group of children, because this particular group of children actually come with some competency in the language itself. But we want to motivate them. We want them to have a wider range of vocabulary. We want them to be able to articulate some of their thoughts, and so that other friends can actually learn from them as well. So why the P4C, why the use of P4C in learning language is because, number one, we can use COI, which is a community of inquiry, as a tool to help them to acquire the necessary vocabulary in speaking Chinese language. Now, we are not talking about the baseline Chinese language. We are talking about vocabulary, phrases, expression in some of the society concern, so that they can go beyond the textbook, they can dwell deeper into stories, they can dwell deeper into social problems. This is what we wanted them to acquire. Okay, this is what I wanted them to acquire in my classroom. And I thought that with COI, when we put them in a setting like that, sitting around one another, it is actually less threatening as compared to looking at me and I questioning them and giving them direct instruction. And when they hear from their friends, rather than they hear from me as an adult, it actually motivates them to think and even dare to articulate their thoughts. And last but not least, is to hear perspective from this group of children and then to establish a wider base of understanding for moral behavior. Now this is the part that I also wonder sometimes really in facilitating a COI, in facilitating such discussion. At the end of the day, should there be a conclusion? For instance, later on the lesson I'm going to share with you deals with the concept of self-control. It talks about anger, it talks about happiness. So my question to the children is that, why when we are happy, when we show our emotions, people can accept it. But when we are angry, when we show our emotions, they are less acceptable. So this is the part that I was trying to get them to think deeper. Why self-control is because 9 years old moving into the 10th and 11 years old, when they are a little bit rebellious, they tend to lose control of their emotions sometimes. So we wanted them to think deeper, and then hopefully also when they become adult, they're a bit more controlled in that sense. So the purpose of this educational intervention is really because we want to motivate them in learning Chinese language, and I also find that there should be a positive impact in their reading and reasoning skill. Because in the lessons that we put in some reading texts, and such reading texts actually give them a wider range of reading material compared to their day-to-day reading. And the stories that stimulate their interest in philosophical problems, and we encourage them to question, develop the concept, and also there's some form of dialogue. I don't mind them arguing in that setting in a very respectful manner. And of course, we work for reasonableness. That means we want them to share about their perspective, but they must give their reason why. And this is to get them to understand that in a social organization like that, if we don't do so, it won't be very nice for people. As simple as that to them. So overall achievement, we are looking into the development of cognitive ability, social development, as well as their critical thinking skills in the classroom. So that is why we want to have P4C in Chinese lesson. Now talking a little bit more about motivation. Now there's a lot of motivational theories around. Vygotsky's idea about developing these higher mental functions, right? He actually says that it takes place in the social interaction. That means how all these higher order thinking skills come about is not by day to day you think on your own, you reflect on your own, and then all these higher thinking skills will come about. It comes in a social setting. That will also mean that we need to place them in the social setting for them to interact with one another. And this actually falls nicely into a COI in the classroom, according to my perspective. And the important role of a more knowledgeable others. That means in your group of children, there will be some that's more knowledgeable than the others. And when they share their perspective, it will be able to help someone who is probably not as knowledgeable. And with this, we actually can level up their competency in that area, in that particular setting. So if you see that, they say that the notion of ZPD means zone of proximal development. It means that a children with help versus a children without help. So when COI actually can come in here, we are actually trying to help the child to learn and to think further. That is why if we use the motivational theory in the learning of this language,